Hi there, welcome back to Apatros Review. In this episode, Angel, directed by Robert Vincent O'Neill in the year 1984. And this review will be of the Australian DV from Rainbow Entertainment. Okay. Now, welcome back to Apatros Review, your guide to the wild world of science fiction action horror. With me, your host, Mile Sipka. If you want to spell my name, just look at the channel name. Okay, in this episode we look at the film Angel, which is a 1984 rather sleazy thriller that was directed by Robert Vincent O'Neill, and it came out on the 13th of January 1984 in the US, and in Australia on the 19th of April 1984. Now, this film, it's one of those films that you can only find in the 80s. I'll explain more momentarily, but the thing is, if you want to, in Australia it was actually released as part of a 3-pack, a box set of which had the first three 80s films. There was a 4th film made in the 90s, but that hasn't come on DVD yet. And as you can see, that's what it looks like. Yep, this is the one. Alright. Now the film was, the DVD, it's region 0. It's multi-regional, so if you want to find it, it's the picture sound quality is kind of a little bit rough. Not that rough, but just reasonable. There's a little bit of grain, and it's pretty dark in places. But I'll get to the DVD portion of the review later. Now, the Angel franchise of the 1980s was one of those things that could only have existed in that awesome decade, although those films were one of the worst things about the 80s. The original film's poster on VHS cover, which this Australian DVD pretty much replicates, was infamous. Just about everyone who frequented video stores in the 1980s and 1990s would have come across a poster or VHS box, many of whom were probably too young to even rent the bloody thing. Now, the idea of making a drama thriller about a 15-year-old high school student who makes a living by moonlighting as a prostitute on Hollywood Boulevard would certainly never be made today. If we were to assume, for argument's sake, that a remake or an original film would be made with the same concept without the filmmaker being tossed out on the street on his ass, the necessity of casting a legally mature actress to avoid legal problems would result in the cult of 2017, that's the woke diversity cult, cancelling the actress for not being actually 15, while the regular folks and conservatives, not to mention anyone with a halfway decent sense of ethics, would pretty much, upon the eventual casting of an actual 15-year-old to play the lead role, be slamming the filmmakers in the same way that the female director of the now infamous film Cuties was slammed for a decision to make that evil piece of work about a 12-year-old Muslim girl who joins a group of other 12-year-olds and comprise a twerking crew. So the filmmakers of that project would be caught in something of a no-win situation. Now, in the case of the original Angel, the film's premise is certainly unique for its time. A 15-year-old girl, having been abandoned by both her parents at the age of 12, made the decision to become a sex worker, and through turning tricks has been paying the tuition of a private high school where she maintains an excellent academic record, and skillfully deflects any inquiry made about her absent parents by claiming that her mother is invalid, the same skill she also uses to detect the cops from the moment they try to pick her up, while spending every night, once she's done her homework, as an underage hooker, turning tricks to earn her rent and tuition money. But when a mysterious serial killer and necrophile who likes to pick up hookers and cut them up before making love to their corpses and who likes to suck raw eggs out of their shells, kills 2 of her friends and realizes that she's the only one who can identify him, first prompting him to come after her while a cop tries to uncover his secret identity, not to mention problems at school when school jocks accidentally discover his secret. But while a concept like this would most certainly have been fodder for your average moralistic daytime drama, instead, writer-director Robert Vincent O'Neill decides to play the story as a thriller, and a rather torture thriller at that. For a film that was a sleeper hit of 1984, and which has, along with its first 2 sequels, attained some real heft of a cult following, which has gotten stronger in the past couple of years following Vinegar Syndrome's release of the first 3 films in a lovingly restored Blu-ray box set that came out as a real surprise treat for their fans, Angel is a film that is stuck with a very significant moral problem. Let me make it simple. This is a sleaze thriller about a prostitute who is underage. A freaking child! While to their very limited credit, the filmmakers decided not to feature any sex scenes or nudity featuring the lead character, although some gratuitous nudity makes its way in with some locker room shots, which was a sensible decision given that the film would have been banned if they went down the other path. The film is essentially something of a thematically released telepic that feels like a telepic. With a little editing, this could easily play on the average TV channel primetime on a Saturday night back in the 1980s and 1990s, but with an unavoidably hypocritical approach that spells doom to the film's integrity. If I was to make a retrospective suggestion, it would be that the angel character should be made to be at least legal age, the film's thriller plot would still function perfectly well, and the sex nudity actually added in, this would be worthy of its cult classic status. But as it is, the film is essentially something of an overrated 1980s trash piece with a jailbait plot and some annoying lapses in logic. Normally I would have given this a D, but the film has some surprisingly good acting from half the cast. While Susan Tyrrell should never have been given the chance to take up the acting profession, given the fact that I find it intensely irritating just about every film I encounter in, and Donna Wilkes, who was in her early 20s when she played the angel role, so they didn't break the law but this way, is not convincing enough to pass muster for this type of role. On the opposite side of the acting spectrum is the likes of Dick Shawn, who plays the protective mother hen of Angel and Streetwalking Friends, a transvestite or trans person who invests some degree of affection in his performance. John Deal as the killer, who rarely says a word except for the climax. His performance is remarkably effective for that he does a very fine job of conveying psychosis by action, not words. Well, then the disgusting scene where he pokes a hole in top of an egg and sucks a yolk out before smashing an eggshell in his mouth. Damn, that's gross. And disguising himself as a member of the local band Hare Krishnas, which leads to one of cinema's funniest fight scenes when he and Sean go head-to-head in Angel's living room. That was funny. But the best actor here is Rory Calhoun, who practically owns every scene he's in as washed-up former silent movie western star Kit Carson, who walks the boulevard with a pair of revolvers, capable of firing real bullets, and telling tourist stories of his acting past. He also comes to the rescue at the end, blowing away the killer and hailstorm bullets. And I should mention, to explain a little bit of the credibility gap of the revolver firing real bullets, both blanks and bullets. The thing is, in Hollywood, weapons that are used in films often have to be modified in order to fire blanks. Because, I mean, of course, most weapons these days are self-loading weapons. The thing is, blanks generate less pressure when they go off than a real bullet. Because real bullets have to have a certain number of pressure to allow the bullet to reach its peak performance. Blanks don't have bullets in them, so they put less primer in them, just enough to make it look convincing. But the thing is, the apparently creates less pressure. So any weapon that the filmmakers want to use to load blanks with, they have to be modified, and which makes drilling holes and stuff. And once that's done, they can't fire real bullets. Revolvers and pump action, lever action weapons, however, don't need to be modified because they don't use recoil energy to load their weapons. So, yeah, interesting. So you can revolvers, pump action, and lever action weapons. They can use both blanks and real bullets. In fact, there's a bit of a funny story on the set of Aliens, where James Remar, before Michael Biehn was cast as Hicks, James Remar was actually originally cast, and during fooling around, James Remar accidentally blew a hole next to a set. And the guy who played Apon Brett asked him, "Who the hell gave you live bullets?" Anyway. So other things considered, Angel gets a D+, 3 out of 10, meaning it's a disappointing film. The concept is primo sleazo, and seriously wrong-headed move by the writers, but at least the surprising acting and a remarkable degree of restraint shown by the filmmakers helps to keep its head above the jailbait sewer line. The sequels were better, but not by much. Okay, now for the gore. Not exactly a gory film given the body count, but that egg-sucking scene was gross. John Deal should hang out with Buffalo Bill sometime in the movie Psycho Hell. As for nudity, there's a couple of locker room scenes with high school girls, thankfully played by legally mature women in the early 20s, parading about fully nude. Boobs, butt, and bush aplenty. In other places, Graham McGavin's topless as Vim Hooker Lana. Okay, now for the DVD. I'll show you the DVD cover again. So it looks like. In Australia, and by the way, that M rating is a mistake. It's actually rated R in Australia. That's the mistake they put the sequels as well. Now in Australia, the first 3 Angel films were released on a reasonably cheap box set from Rainbow Entertainment, a company that was also known as Hollywood DVD, At least I think it is, given that the DVDs for all three films start with the Rainbow logo, and then the menu feature Hollywood DVD at the bottom of the screen. Rainbow was also one of the first labels in Australia to release a Hellraiser film on DVD, with their release of Hellraiser 3 Hell on Earth, shortly before Magna Pacific did. They also put out a box set of the first 3 Leprechaun films, and was responsible for the Region 4 release of Return of the Living Dead 3. I thought that was the cut version. Now, to begin with, the print Rainbow used for Angel is very mediocre. The print is quite dark, making some nighttime scenes almost unwatchable, unless you boost the contrast on the TV screen to maximum, and in some extreme cases, even that won't work. And a shitload of grain is visible. Indeed, this rivals some of Force Video's worst releases for the extreme grain factor. For example, their release of Dead and Buried. The ratio is in 1:3:3, but instead of being open matte, it's cropped instead from the original 1:85 ratio. The solitary English stereo is sometimes muffled, making listening a chore, while there are no subtitles featured. There is also no supplement on this disc. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. So basically, Angel gets a D+, 3 out of 10. It's disappointing. It would have been worse than that, but it's got some surprisingly good acting in it. And that fight scene is pretty hilarious. Okay. Now, I don't do requests, but if you want to know of a particular film in my collection, just hit me up in the comment section and answer. Also, if you have any questions about like technical details and stuff, like if you want to know if there's an uncut version of a film available, or if an Australian DVD is uncut, I'll do my best to answer those questions. Okay. Hope you guys are staying safe. When the vaccine comes out, take it. It'll save your life, believe me. Okay, that's it for this review.